Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FANation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook live show. We got 5 games here, all starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for tonight's NBA DFS slate on DraftKings and on FanDuel. It is the eve before the NBA Emirates Cup tournament. Qualifiers start tomorrow here, so a pretty interesting 5-game slate. We had some big injury news pop out during the middle of the day. Kyle Kuzma off the injury report. Fred VanVleet ruled out for tonight. Malik Monk is out tonight as well. We know the Chet Holmgren news going to miss a bunch of times at 8 to 10 weeks for the Thunder. So that's certainly going to be making an impact here today. James, man, how are we feeling about stuff?
Kenrich Williams off the injury report, not to be excluded. We don't know what his limitations are coming off knee surgery. But they just simply need any able body in the front court. So, what will Kenrich be able to give them is a question. He's 6'6", but he's played small ball center. So, definitely an interesting day of news. And I'm absolutely sure we're not done leading up to 8 p.m.
God, no. 3 hours right now until roster lock and everything starting at 8 p.m., I'm sure. We will get some sort of other nugget dropped here. We appreciate you all tuning in. If you want to hit that like, that subscribe, and that share button, especially the like button, it helps us out more than you could possibly know. It's free to do. So if you're in here tuning in, sharing it on X or liking it over on YouTube, again, we certainly appreciate all the support. You guys popping in. Want to throw a comment in the chat like Jeff did here saying, Heidi, what's up, Jeff? Happy to have you in the chat with us here today. Any questions, comments, concerns, best bets? Grande's got all of his pick'em picks out there for today. We're happy to help you guys get ready again. Not until 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for roster lock. So some additional time to go eat some dinner, right? Get the kids settled in maybe, and then settle in for a night of basketball where at least where you'll stand when the games are over, because they all start and end at the same exact time here. So Grande, let's get into it. Point guard position has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's $10,000 as your top price play. This year, without Chet Holmgren on the floor, it's almost 40% usage rate for SGA. You got James Harden at $9,800. De'Aaron Fox up here as well as the top 3 price point guards. For me, I think SGA feels like almost a no-brainer. I understand Harden is there and $200 cheaper, but we saw SGA last year, when it was kind of, a team to himself for stretches, give you the 60-plus fantasy points, 30-plus actual night run here. So I like the matchup at home against the Clippers. They're home favorites tonight. I think this is going to be a big spot for SGA.
Yeah, I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a top 3 MVP candidate for a reason last year and hasn't necessarily had to play like that yet, just given what leaps Chet and J-Dub have taken this year. But they're going to need it from him in this spot. Like you mentioned, the 40% usage rate. Last game when Chet left, he had 17 potential rebounds as well. I mean, we're talking about a guy just knowing they're going to be shorthanded and short in general on an average basketball court. We're going to see SGA crash the glass a lot. Obviously, he's a good passer. He's just an elite do everything guy. So I agree. I lean SGA to Harden. My stance really hasn't changed on Harden, and it won't change really for this season in general. Maybe when Kawhi comes back, it will. If Kawhi comes back, James Harden is going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to take a lot of shots. He's going to accrue a ton of peripheral stats. And if you get the game where James Harden makes the shots, he's going to break a slate because everything else is elite. The assists are elite. The rebounds are elite. He's good defensively in terms of accruing stats. So nights that James Harden makes shots are nights that you're going to win a lot of money using James Harden. So never faults you for playing him in tournaments. And I do think De'Aaron Fox is interesting. A lot of minutes yesterday. They had to play in that overtime game against Phoenix. He played 41 minutes. Now they're down Malik Monk. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is going to play another 40 minutes. They don't really play a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And like whether or not Sacramento plays 10, 8, 9, and 10 play single-digit minutes and maybe get into double figures. So no Monk is going to obviously just lead to massive run from the starting unit and probably like Keon Ellis as well again. So yeah, I have no interest in fading any of the top 3 point guards on this slate. They're all super appealing.
We did it again too yesterday. We talked about Fox not giving us secondary stats.
Yeah.
And he goes for 8 assists and 11 rebounds. Like we are really good at crapping on a player and then having them immediately go off for some big time production here. Jefferson, we'll talk about Sabonis here, but we certainly, we're certainly in on Sabonis here tonight. And then Eamon Thompson, we'll talk about Albert. Willie, we'll work on the sound. I heard him fine. Again, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's just our program here because I'm not hearing him pop or go in and out. So we'll try to monitor it. We apologize if that ends up being the case still. Again, we had some issues yesterday with Restream as well with our NFL show, so it could certainly be just a platform problem. But we apologize. We'll do our best to try to keep this show as clear as possible for anybody. But if we miss something, please feel free to leave a comment and we'll work on clarifying anything you may have missed here. Willie, like we're saying, yesterday we had some issues with Restream, so it could just be a platform problem. So we'll see. All right, we're gonna way down the list then. Garland, $7,100. We talked about this matchup against Chicago. Papa, top paced team is Chicago, so it's a pace up spot for Cleveland here. Schroeder as well at $7,000. Giddy, Paul, and Alvarado sort of ranking out this 6K range. What do we think today?
I like Darius Garland at 71. Big pace up spot, has been really good offensively. So no problems getting to Garland. Schroeder's fine at $7,000. I'm a little indifferent about it, but it's a great spot. Pelicans are 29th in defense. The Bulls guys are whatever. I mean, if you're gonna play Cleveland, you're probably gonna. That assumes you think the game's gonna stay competitive enough to get a full run out of Cleveland. So having Bulls is not a terrible idea in tournaments. So like Giddy obviously has a ceiling, but we saw the minutes are capped when Levine's back because they can go Io Dosunmu and be okay with it. 25 minutes for Giddy. Dosunmu played more than him. So I'm not like about Giddy. I would rather get to like a Kobe White. Chris Paul, don't think we can go there with Devin Vassell back and the shot attempts just plummeting again. 3 straight games of 7 or less for Chris Paul. And then Alvarado, like the Murphy being back thing does not take me off Jose Alvarado at all. Neither does the price. Brooklyn's been good defensively, and they do have like good pieces defensively to keep them like that. And obviously they're playing at a slow pace and whatnot. And this game is obviously more appealing from the Brooklyn side of things, but they're just so shorthanded. Alvarado, the shot volume is still going to be there. The 3-point volume is still going to be there. He's still going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And so I can't see a limited Trey Murphy or what we assume to be a limited Trey Murphy really taking minutes away from Alvarado at all. So yeah, I like Alvarado at 62.
Yeah, he's going to come off the bench. We accept Murphy too here. And, positionally, Alvarado plays a different spot, right? Like, yeah, they could run Ingram at the 1 and have Murphy on the floor, but I felt like maybe more so Murphy would impact a Boston or like a Javonte Green, somebody like that that's getting minutes off the bench. I think Alvarado's pretty safe. I have quite a few shares of him in Underdog here tonight as well, doing the snake draft, so I'm hopeful that Alvarado doesn't lose out any additional run because I do feel like Brooklyn's a decent spot for him there. What about Schroeder then on the opposite side of that at 7K?
I talked about Schroeder.
Okay, cool. I heard the Giddy point there. Levert's $5,100, Castle 49 as we get down to some value, Ben Simmons 48.
Yeah, Levert's fine. Castle indifferent about. I think the intriguing one for me is Ben Simmons. I had tweeted at a beat reporter for Brooklyn earlier about the Dorian Finney-Smith downgrade, and he had mentioned Simmons and Nick Claxton have only shared the floor for 10 minutes this year. So if Finney-Smith sits, it's unlikely that you see Simmons start, and they probably just go a different direction, Clowney or Wilson or whatever the case is. But it's probably not going to be Simmons. But either way, you have to like the Ben Simmons minutes, and you have to like the production of late. So yeah, I like Simmons in tournaments.
Yep, and obviously he matches up well, like defending an Ingram or defending a Murphy when they get on the floor. There's as well. You mentioned Monk, Keon Ellis, Cason Wallace is down here. Would you take any darts at some of the cheap value plays?
Ellis is fine. He played 28 minutes. He usually does when there's a good offensive team on the other side of the floor and Monk isn't there. So yeah, there's a case for Keon Ellis to equal or play more minutes than Kevin Huerter if Huerter's not making shots. So we'll see. Always a chance that we see Cason Wallace in the starting lineup. You never know what Dagnall's going to do on a night-to-night basis. Didn't start yesterday, played 30 minutes. Aaron Wiggins didn't play after his third quarter shift. So Cason Wallace is fine, but nothing like of a priority.
Yeah, and then at least for now, given the news of Fred VanVleet, there is a lot of ownership going towards Reed Sheppard here. Is this more wishful thinking? Do we think that do we have like an expectation that he might enter the starting lineup? I know we talk a lot of Amen Thompson. We had that question, and we'll touch on Amen at shooting guard. But what do we think here for Reed Sheppard? What would we, you help out with the projections over at Fantasy Alarm. Like, where are the minutes do you think we're looking for Reed Sheppard tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think low 20s. Obviously, there's more upside if the game becomes a blowout, but not going to assume blowout without a team starting point guard on the one side, and Washington gets their best scorer on the other side back in Kyle Kuzma. So, I mean, it's $3,100. You assume he's going to, the fourth overall pick is going to see an uptick in minutes, but that's just an assumption. They could just run Amen Thompson out for 35 minutes and then call it a day, right? And in those 35 minutes, Reed Sheppard sees a little bit of a bump. Fred VanVleet leads them in minutes, right? At the end of the day, there are a lot of minutes to be had because nobody plays more than VanVleet on this team. But also, Aaron Holiday is lurking, and there's minutes to go there, right? We've seen Aaron Holiday get run at times, especially the last few years. Obviously, Reed Sheppard wasn't on that version of team, but
whenever we wanted to be Cam Whitmore, is always Aaron Holiday.
It was, yeah. I mean, so I think low 20s is like a reasonable expectation. And at 3,100, you just are betting on talent at that point. And also baked in is probably people assuming it's going to be a blowout. I'm not going to assume that because again, like they are losing their point guard who is, played the most minutes for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little indifferent about Sheppard. I am happy to see his ownership declining. Like when it was 55%, I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's now about 30. That's fine. Probably what I would also like if I'm building multiple lineups, I have 30% of Reed Sheppard. That's fine. He's $3,100. If he gets you anywhere near 20 fantasy points, you're going to be very comfortable with the outcome. So, where does he rank amongst like Rockets for me? Like 6th in terms of priority, but he's fine at
31. Shooting guard. Donovan Mitchell, your top price at 81. Jordan Poole, 7,800 now gets played with Kyle Kuzma again. Jalen Green, $7,400. Feels like a pretty nice price point without Fred VanVleet on the floor here. Not a ton of minutes, obviously, that these guys usually don't play without each other. But Jalen Green, 27% usage rate this year. A lot of guys we've already talked about with dual positional eligibility. Is Jalen Green the priority now at this price point?
Probably. Definitely. Like I definitely think that he's more appealing. Like Jordan Poole obviously takes a step back, although Jordan Poole in a small sample, 1.3 fantasy points per minute with Kuzma this year. Like that's fine. No one's going to play him either. Still think that there's potentially limitations to. I mean, Jalen Green's also someone who has lost time. I don't think they can afford to do that tonight, but he has not shot the ball well. Ime Udoka does not mess around. Like he's willing to bench these guys if they're not giving him what he wants.
Yeah.
And so you never know. You might see a Thompson, Shepard, Eason, Şengün, Jabari lineup, and
Anything,
Jalen Green's just like out of the. No, I mean he's a perfectly fine play. It's a great spot. A lot of people are going to go to Jalen Green. He's one of the top 10 roster players of the night.
Yeah,
along with all the other Rockets. So yeah, it's probably Jalen Green. I do think an interesting pivot and someone I'm not usually playing is Cam Thomas. I don't play a lot of Cam Thomas because I do think that he is, and I've said this to you before, I think he's very one-dimensional. He's been good at rebounding this year. He's amongst one of their top potentials in rebounds. Yeah. And he's not being rostered at all, 11%. So they're in just as good a spot, Brooklyn is, as Washington or as Houston is, maybe better. There's a pace up advantage that Houston has versus Brooklyn, but the Pelicans are 29th in defense. So if you're at all worried about Jalen Green or just want to pivot specifically just to get away from the ownership, Cam Thomas is that guy.
Yeah, I agree. Jefferson here saying he likes Norm Powell. Definitely like Norm Powell as well. Since moving into that starting lineup, he has continued just to be an absolute bucket. It's just whether or not you get enough peripheral stats on a night-to-night basis. And so far you have been, but as that price tag continues to move up, 33 to 36 fantasy points is less of a value. It's good for this slate, good for this slate size, especially. Josh saying these are the best slates when all the games start and end together. I would agree with you there. Because again, we talk on these smaller slates, you're looking for guys that have, higher floors than usual, right? Like on big tournament days, with 11 games, 12 games, you need guys that have huge ceilings. Sometimes on smaller slates, you just need guys that have 35, 30 fantasy point floors because there's only so many players on the slate that can even do that. So I think Norm fits that bill perfectly. Again, I don't really see any issues with any of the top guys. Donnie Mitch, we've been waiting to have that big game. Could be a Donovan Mitchell night. You tweeted out you pick the wrong. You never know what Cav is going to have the day here. Faisal saying it's a Jared Allen day. Very well could be a Jared Allen day. We'll talk about center here in a little bit. Devin Vassell returned the other day, played 21 minutes, had 21 points. We got Trey Murphy coming back. We got Boston in this range as well. Levine, Carrington questionable for tonight, but in that grouping. Thoughts here as we work our way down into the mid-range?
Yeah, I mean, the Levine price is obviously interesting. It's just the injury is clearly hindering him, and there's a limit. So you don't love to see players at 6,800 on like a strict limit. But if they lift that, I think it's fine. He's a bucket. Not going to go Vassell if we don't get, a substantial minutes increase. Had 5 fouls in 22 minutes. I mean, he, was out there for a good time, not a long time. So, yep. We'll save that for when the minutes are on the rise. Same thing with Trey Murphy. Hasn't played. Unless we hear that, there's no limitations on Murphy, then I'm probably not going there. I don't know what to do with Brandon Boston. I have little to no Brandon Boston right now, and I'm comfortable with that because we don't have word on what Trey Murphy's minutes are going to be. And I'm not saying Boston's still not going to play a bunch because they can always just use a smaller lineup like Brooklyn can, where Ingram's playing your so-called power forward, right? Or whatever, because they don't need to go JRE in their starting lineup. They could just play Ingram at the 4. Dorian Finney-Smith is a smaller power forward that Brooklyn deploys. So if he plays. Yeah. So, I mean, Boston's obviously a really tricky case because if he does get to 37, 38 minutes, he does get double-digit shot attempts, well, he's, still fine at 5,900. There's still a really high ceiling. We've seen it in 2 of the last 3 games. So Boston's tricky for me tonight. We'll see if we get more confirmation on what is expected out of Trey Murphy and when we get the starting lineup for the Pelicans. So when that comes through the wire, I'll have more of
I mean, he has certainly played himself into some more playing time.
Sure.
Again, so we'll see where that ranks at. It's still a good price tag. He's getting around 20% ownership tonight as well. So some people are still on him. I like Karis LeVert a lot at $5,100. Again, he's coming off the bench. Doesn't really matter what kind of minutes he plays. The production's sort of just the same. He goes out there, scores 12 to 15 points. He gives you a handful of rebounds, a handful of assists, and like a steal. So feel pretty good knowing that this is also a big pace up spot for him at $5,100. We know Chicago can just throw a bunch of guards out there, and maybe LeVert matches up well with that spot as well here. But our current highest rostered player on the slate is Amen Thompson. We'll see if any of that adjusts. You've talked a lot on this show about Amen Thompson and like what we can expect out of him, how there are times where he just gets on the floor, Ime likes him, and he plays a bunch of minutes and he fills up the stat sheet. We got the 41 fantasy points against Golden State. He played 33 minutes after that, gave you 29, almost 30 fantasy points there, which is 6x on a 5K price tag, $4,900 now. And we're expecting probably around 30 plus minutes tonight, and likely the one that's entering the starting lineup for the Rockets.
I mean, he is an absolute menace defensively, and he's just everywhere offensively. Like, he is handling the ball. He is crashing the glass. He is making the right pass. Like, he does everything other than make 3-point shots. And if that ever comes, like, he's never going to come off the floor. He's going to play 40 minutes a night. Amen Thompson's going to be my highest rostered player of the night. I'm over the field on Amen Thompson if I'm playing multi entries, at least right now where it sits at 45-ish% expected rostership. I would be over that, especially if he's starting, which, that's what we've seen in years past. Or at least last year, during his rookie year, we saw him start on a few occasions. I'd have full confidence in him starting. I mean, we've been talking about playing Amen Thompson off the bench. And now, like, there's potential for him starting and getting 30 plus minutes, which obviously is in the cards. He's done it twice already this year, so no reason to not think Amen Thompson is an absolute monster in the starting lineup at the price. It's just like elite eligibility, elite matchup, minute potential. I mean, there's just nothing really in the bad column for Amen Thompson.
Yeah, 1.1 fantasy points per minute on the year as well. Close to 1.1 fantasy points per minute without Fred VanVleet on the floor this season. Obviously, a pretty decent sample size with that, with him sort of the way the rotation work. If you're playing on FanDuel tonight, Kevin Huerter is actually your highest rostered player because he is free. He is $4,400 on FanDuel, which again is 4K is I think the min over there. A little bit more expensive.
35.
Okay, a little bit more expensive over on DraftKings. We're coming off 41 fantasy points. They needed him. He fouled out of that game as well. Without Malik Monk, I mean, we've kind of talked about it, right? He's a guy that's going to get more minutes because he starts. Monk is the one that would come in and take him off the floor, more likely to get a longer rotation. And if the shot drops, he's going to take a bunch of threes. He hit 5 of them. He got 17 actual. That's just the way it's going to drop for him. I don't know if we can consistently rely on like 7 rebounds, a block, and 3 steals. But the 3-point shot should be there at 4,500.
Yeah, I mean, he's really cheap, and there's now less competition behind him, right? I think the only thing that could hurt him is if they're in a tight game and they just play Keon Ellis over him, right? Just for defense, which is obviously a possibility. Keon Ellis is a very good defender, and that he played 20 minutes last night, so it wouldn't be surprising. But I like the value. I like the position eligibility. I like that there's no Monk. So, no problems in any format getting to Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else add shooting guard for you? We got
all the OKC guys.
All the OKC guys here. Yep. Joe.
Dude, Lou Dort. I was surprised to see this earlier. He's at 1.1 fantasy points per minute this year without Chet Holmgren. That was like the most surprising thing to me. And it's a small sample, obviously, but Lou Dort being a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy without Chet was really appealing because you just don't think of Lou Dort as that guy. But he has had a lot of really consistent games. When you're talking about a $4,100 player, a starter that's going to get you 30 minutes in a competitive game,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by Lou Dort. Again, another guy that has potential to see some of the peripheral stats go up, just given what is missing and it's their starter, their backup, and the backup to the backup center. So
Yep.
I like Dort. I'd be good with Caruso if we found out, like, not going to put it past Dagnall to start Caruso randomly. There's Case and Wallace we talked about. Isaiah Joe is going to be really popular like he is every night. And every night he really just pays off this price. I'm a little confused as to why Isaiah Joe is not at least 4K. Because, like, we're getting 20 plus minutes. He was in, like, he played through blowout last night. Like, there was, like, every scenario Isaiah Joe was just on the floor. So as long as they're going to keep pricing him this way, it's kind of like the Jalen Smith thing, although Jalen Smith is now on the injury report.
Yeah.
Like, why would we not at least consider these guys? They play the same role every night and their price doesn't move. So yeah, I think also maybe something to consider. We don't know what happens with Finney Smith, but if, like, Zaire Williams were to enter the starting lineup at 3,700, because I know Brooklyn or DraftKings may list him as a shooting guard, but he's not playing. He's literally playing in the front court for Brooklyn. So if Zaire Williams were to enter a rotation for Finney Smith, if he were ruled out, that would be intriguing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, random 12 rebound game against Boston. For someone
who's not playing shooting guard, they're just that's just listing him incorrectly. He's playing forward.
Yep. So yeah, a lot of ownership going here. Small forward, a lot of guys we have talked about. Ingram's 86, Jalen Williams is $7,800 here. DeMar DeRozan $7,700. Three guys we haven't yet talked about. DDR obviously going into San Antonio, but Jalen Williams covered my playbook today. We're obviously expecting big things out of him without Chet Holmgren on the floor.
Yeah, 30% usage rate, 6'7" guy playing center last game once Chet went out, and, like, I know Kenrich is back, and they played Dylan Jones, but he's also 6'6". Like, they just don't have length. Jalen Williams has a 7'3" wingspan, so, like, you can like, you can probably get away with that a little bit. They're in trouble regardless. If Zubats is on the floor for extended periods of time, they're in trouble. But I love Jalen Williams, obviously, all formats. He's an elite play, 30% usage rate, big fantasy point per minute output. I think it's hilarious that just Trey Murphy, a limited version of Trey Murphy, is coming back, and nobody wants to play Ingram anymore. And, like, I know he's still getting, like, a little bit of ownership, but he only played 26 minutes because he was in early foul trouble, didn't get anything going offensively. But, like, let's not forget, we've seen 50 out of him twice, and still, like, clearly it's his team, and everything else around it is, like, kind of just filler. So if Ingram gets going, there's obviously merit to getting to him, and he has elite position eligibility too, point guard, small forward. So yeah, like each of the top two guys, you can get to DDR, and we've talked Powell and Thomas.
Yep. Mid-tier. How much does Kuzma returning impact your thoughts on Koulibaly or Keyshawn George here?
Pretty good amount. I mean, I don't know, like, he's just fully listed available. So unless we hear word that there's some type of limitation, I'm expecting Kuzma to be available for 30 minutes. Hasn't played in almost a week or 2 weeks, but Washington has never been shy to just throw Kuzma out there for big minutes if games are competitive. So it definitely hurts, because this isn't like 4,800 below Koulibaly. He's 64. Right. That's a tough price to get to when we've already kind of talked about, like, well, the shot volume is fine. Like, it's getting there. But now with Kuzma, Kuzma is their highest usage rate player. He's going to lead them in shots on a nightly basis. So definitely hurts. I would say their only saving grace is potentially Bub Carrington being out. That would be their only, like, well, one of them is probably safe. Which one, I don't know. But I'm a little less bullish on like the secondary pieces in Washington now.
Okay. I don't mind Cam Johnson here either. If you want to just play him, he's been pretty safe. Should be a good spot again against Pelicans who are not playing any defense. Value wise, we talked Eamon Thompson. Now we get to talk about Tyree Eason, a guy that is also getting a lot of ownership love here today. A guy that also is averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute with Fred VanVleet off the floor. That's probably just Tyree Eason in general. Doesn't even probably wouldn't matter if FAV plays or not, but Eason being the monster that he is getting a lot of love here tonight against this Washington Wizards team.
Yeah, I believe we built with him last night.
Yeah.
Obviously before we knew any news with Fred VanVleet. So, yeah, I mean, he's just an elite fantasy player. Has a 50 fantasy point ceiling we've saw. And Udoka is someone who rides the hot hand. Especially with like VanVleet aside, everyone else is not safe. I actually, you know what? Dylan Brooks seems pretty safe. Like those two seem pretty safe in terms of minutes, but everyone else not safe. So if Easton's playing well off the bench, look out. I mean, we could be looking at 30 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'd be pretty, he feels pretty safe anyway. It's just at the price point. And I think that we're going to see a lot of people probably go in that direction anyways, just based off of what we know his upside can be, what the matchup is and the pricing. So it's not surprising that you end up seeing the ownership where it is as well. A lot of these guys we have talked about, you mentioned Dylan Brooks. Obviously, the ceiling for him, isn't necessarily where the other guys are at this price point for him. Would you rather play Dylan Brooks tonight or some of the Thunder players?
Well, I think you can almost with certainty say if Dylan Brooks stays out of foul trouble, you're guaranteeing more minutes from him out of all those guys.
Sure.
Other than Dort. I think Dort and Brooks look pretty similar. So like other than like just getting one of the OKC guys right and just like hitting on a lottery ticket, I mean, Dylan Brooks is going to play more minutes. So I don't mind playing Dylan Brooks here. I mean, he plays heavy minutes. He's a good defender. And at times he can space the floor. I mean, 36% from three is not great, but
yeah.
Obviously shot volume is not going to be, I think, a worry for him without VanVleet tonight. So, I mean, 0.9 fantasy points per minute. If Dylan Brooks plays 35 minutes at 0.9 fantasy points at $4,200, like you're really satisfied with that outcome.
Sure.
So, I'm definitely good with Brooks because, again, there's obviously a chance for foul trouble, but he's been, only averaging 3 fouls per game this year. So, only fouled out of 1 game this year. So,
I mean, he's not like he's going to necessarily be on some like.
Kuzma, Poole, one of those two.
Yeah, probably Poole, right? Poole probably makes more sense there. We had a question obviously on Aaron Wiggins here. He had, started and didn't play a lot of minutes afterwards. So
all those stats were first half, by the way. Yeah. Every stat you see last night, I was so happy. I played a lot of Aaron Wiggins, and I was like,
a lot of people did, yeah.
He had no stats in the second half. He played one shift.
My only like snowflake. He wasn't a snowflake, but like he was the only non-fire guy in my lineup last night. So
yeah.
And then obviously I'm just going to mention it because he's our guy. But if there was ever a path for some Cam Whitmore minutes, he does have a 27% usage rate this year.
I think he's in the G League.
Oh, they sent him down. No.
Yeah, he's been in the G League for a little while. I don't think. Yeah, he's out on the per 430 injury report. He's out.
There you go. I was going to say, you're looking at the usage rates here. He's popping off the charts with the usage rate without Fred VanVleet on the floor, but they sent him down. That's too bad. All right, power forward then. Jalen's there, DeRozan, Evan Mobley, $7,600.
I don't want to talk about it. He's obviously a great play. Usage rate on the rise. Cleveland's just in such a good spot. I mean, they're in a dream spot. Chicago's #1 in pace. They're bottom half of the league in defense. If you get full run in of Evan Mobley, he can smash. But I just don't know. He has 250 bombs, and everything else in between is 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, there's obviously a ceiling. He's an elite defensive player who's an improving offensive player and is like a good rebounder next to a great rebounder. And sometimes good rebounder is better than great rebounder. So, I mean, if you want to play Mobley at 76, you just hold your butt and hope it's not a Jared Allen night, because every night it flip flops. Like it's Jared Allen, then it's Evan Mobley, then it's Evan Mobley, then it's Jared Allen. So I mean, great tournament play, fine for cash, but figuring out if it's Mobley or Jared Allen causes so many internal issues, and I say that from personal experience.
Yeah, I know, right? What are the expectations for Kuzma tonight?
30 minutes. There hasn't been any reporting on whether or not he's going to be limited in any capacity. I mean, they played yesterday. He was out early, and then they play today, and he's in really early, right? Like middle of the day injury report, not even listed, not even questionable, not even so. I'd assume we get 30 plus minutes out of Kuzma, but we'll probably hear from Brian O'Keefe before the game on, I'm sure, specifics on like minute restrictions or whatnot.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Keegan, rebounding.
Yeah, he's been good. I mean, he's good at that, and I think Sabonis needs some help there. So yeah, I mean, I'm good with Keegan. He's on the road though. Keegan at home versus the road. It's been a thing throughout his career. Maybe not this year, but
sure. Hey, he's been crazy good with the rebounding there. Keldon's been good off the bench. Minutes obviously lately over 30 the last couple of games here. Something we can probably continue to expect from him, production wise. It's been really good 6-man for them.
Yep, no issues getting to Keldon.
Anything else then as we work our way down? I mean, there's Sar now, $5,800, but Kuzma's back. Talk to Eason, Jabari's there, but we haven't really played a lot of Jabari Smith this season. Is there like an obvious value power forward you're looking to play?
I think Jabari is like the most interesting case on the board, because I think Eamon Thompson starting helps him, and it just like shifts everyone up a little bit and maybe gives Jabari a little more leeway. But I still can't get there. It's really hard. I'd rather just play Tyrese. And I don't think there's anything else that is like concrete. Robinson Earl, if he starts, but like he hasn't really been good on a fantasy point per minute scale, and they raised his price a lot. I don't think there's anything else down here.
Center we go then. Wembanyama, Sabonis, your top two guys here. Wemby obviously had the 7 block game the other day, 16 rebounds, 24 points, 59 fantasy points. I feel like you'd expect more than 59 fantasy points for a guy that has 7 blocks, but that's what we got there in 33 minutes over Utah. Sabonis, as we know, can give you the triple-double potential. Does have to deal with Wemby on the defensive end there. But for me and you, I think it's Zubac and Şengün as like two of the priorities here, right?
Yeah, Zubac is in a great spot because I don't know how OKC is going to guard Zubac. Like Kenrich Williams, again, activated off the injury report. He is 6'5". And, he's a really good hustle player, but he's 6'5". So is that going to stop Zubac, who's playing 35 plus minutes? 38 and 37 in the last 2, 37 more in 3 of the last 4. So OKC has a decision to make on what they're going to do. Oh, and they might honestly potentially try to just get Zubac off the floor, right? Like, and that might be their game plan. But yeah, I think Şengün is really hard for me to fade. And this was pre-Fred VanVleet. You just look at every game that Alperen Şengün has been extended in this year, and he smashes. I mean, 7,900. We got to a point where he was $9,200 third slate of the year.
Yeah.
And the Rockets have been involved in a bunch of blowouts, and we've seen the algorithms not factor that point in and just lower players' prices. This seems like one of the bigger misprices on the board. And now you're taking away their starting point guard, and their starting center has a 30+% usage rate without him. And the whole offense is going to flow through him. He's an elite passer for a big man. You're going to see that on full display tonight without VanVleet. Maybe to those playing, to those bettors out there, sprinkle in something really responsibly, of course. Sprinkle in a Şengün triple-double, in your local sports books there. He is a great passer. So I have not really wavered on Şengün. I'm all in on Houston in general, because we talked about it last night, and this is again pre Van Vliet. They're too cheap, and their prices are being like lowered based on a bunch of blowouts that the algorithm's taking into account or not taking into account that those are happening. So I think Şengün is the top center per dollar for me tonight. Love Zubats, love Wemby, love Sabonis. I think this is a really strong position tonight, but I don't think you can. I mean, the price difference on Şengün is just criminally low without Van Vliet tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, right? 32% usage rate without Van Vliet on the floor, just like it's what you're looking for, right? You're looking for a guy to take over and dominate. Last year, you and I, we had a lot of success betting the over assists. Usually they were around like 4.5, like 5, and he was giving you 5, 6, 7 a lot last year when he was kind of facilitating that offense there. So I'm with you. You got the Cleveland guys. Obviously, it could be Jared Allen night, as we saw earlier. $6,900 is a good price tag for him.
Great price.
Obviously, it was not the day yesterday. Sorry, James. 2 days ago, rather. But every other game's been pretty good for Jared Allen this season. So if you want to test him out against Vucevic tonight, you can. I like Claxton if I'm looking to spend down. Again, the minutes, loved seeing him play 32 minutes. And you look at what New Orleans plays for their front court, and they're out of front court men, basically. They'll put BC out there. They have Daniel Tice, but nothing that's intimidating. Claxton, double-doubled the last time out. You talk about his like limited offensive upside, but the rebounds will be there, and it'll probably continue to get some of the defensive numbers as well.
Yeah, I don't hate Claxton at all. I mean, they paid him a boatload of money. He's the highest paid player on their team. 32 minutes is elite. He's been productive with or without Ben Simmons, I would say. Again, they don't really play together and they stagger their minutes, so has not really been impactful for Claxton at all. We'll see what happens if Finney Smith doesn't play and if that remains the case. But if you're going to start getting 32 plus minutes out of Nick Claxton, we're going to start getting a regularly scheduled programming of double doubles. And when he is, passing as well as he has, I mean, a lot of assists lately.
Yeah,
we're going to get big block games too, because he's an elite defender. So the scoring is never going to be this like 20 point per game scorer, but I do also think he's a better scorer than what we've gotten so far. It's just been a lot of limitations throughout the beginning of the year.
Sure.
I agree. I think Nick Claxton 57 is too cheap. And I've put it out a couple times. I'll just say it again. New Orleans is 29th in defense. As a team, they are terrible defensively. I think this is a great Brooklyn spot. All of them are too cheap. 5,900 is a price that or 5,700 rather is a price I'm definitely willing to take advantage of.
Yeah, and to your point on Claxton with the scoring, last year 11.8 points per game. The year before that 12.6 points per game. He averaged 8 shot attempts and 7.7 shot attempts those 2 years. Shot attempts per game right now is sitting at 5.7. But if we do start to get him this around 8 shot attempts, he's a guy that only plays around the rim. So his efficiency, usually around 70%. Around the rim there. So if we can get those 8 shot attempts, we have a chance for a ceiling here. Any other centers for you tonight that you take a look at?
Yeah, I want to ask 2 names. Ousmane Dieng and Kenrich Williams. What is your expectation for minutes on both?
I mean, you would have thought he would have played more yesterday, right? But they only played 11 minutes in that game against the Warriors. Now, the Warriors didn't play Trace Jackson Davis.
They don't care.
They didn't. They took him off the floor, playing him 5 minutes. So they didn't really need to go Dieng here. Against Zubac, though, I mean, they can't, Dieng has to play. Like, they can't afford to go small here. So I get Kenrich, but he's also undersized and coming off of an injury. So
yeah, knee surgery, like not just like I mean, I would say there's no way that they consume all 48 center minutes. You're going to see like Jalen Williams play small ball center at times. But don't you think like I agree on like originally thinking Ousmane Dieng would need to play more yesterday. But also when you factor in that Draymond's your primary center on one side, you don't necessarily need him to.
Right.
Ivica Zubac you
need a real center for that guy.
Is a big human being. So That's my only thing with Jang, where I can see a case to where he's playing more. And I just think Kendrick Williams, I know he's undersized, but he has played center for them multiple years in a row. So I think that they will both be playing. I'm not saying I'm using either of them. I just wanted to get your opinion on if you
I
feel
think more likely to play Dieng than Kendrick Williams, I think, because he's at least been playing. So,
Yep.
Zubac and Şengün are $100 difference on FanDuel. We got to lean one way or the other. We still going Şengün here?
Şengün all day.
Okay. And then Ryan wants to know 4 Rockets too many. I mean, they're big favorites against Washington. It depends on the Rockets, I guess, right? Like if you're worried about a blowout, then 4 could be, you're playing Eamon Thompson, you're playing Tyrese, and I would imagine. And then what is it, Jalen Green and Şengün or Reed Shepherd, Eason and crew? Like, let me know what the 4 are. I think that there's a chance, maybe too much. What do you think?
I don't think it's too much.
Okay. Well, time to build a lineup. And obviously plug in Şengün with the way you've been discussing him today.
Şengün, Thompson,
yeah. Jalen Williams, 78. Yeah. Which Thunder player do we want to go with? Joe maybe feels a little more safer.
I think, I think Dort is probably better.
With Dort. Yeah.
I think the minutes are definitely a little more secure with Dort.
63-25, point guard, forward, and util.
Herder? Do you want to play Herder? 47?
Yeah. 6,900. We probably can get another spend up in here. Where do you want to go? I mean, Wemby would give us 51. SGA would give us 54.
See, this is the point where we go SGA, Eason, and then we just don't have Brooklyn or Pelicans.
6K util would be Boston or Keldon, probably. Or Claxton, double center.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn's getting vastly underrepresented.
You want to get to Cam Johnson or something, probably, right?
I mean, I like Claxton. I don't have any problems with Claxton. I think he's too cheap.
Okay. Well, we'll do that then. Double center it, $300 left over. And James, all the games start at 8 o'clock tonight. So it doesn't really matter where I put the guys on the lineup.
Perfect.
SGA, Dort, Eamon Thompson, Jalen Williams, Şengün, Horder, Eason, and Claxton. An example lineup for everybody here tonight. Again, we appreciate everybody. If you hit that like button on the YouTube channel, it is a free way to support our show. We come here live every day at 5 p.m. Eastern time to get you guys ready for the night slate. We do the preview show at night. We get you guys ready throughout the day before the live show, give you our first look takes on today's slate. Big slate tomorrow. So we certainly will hope to see you then. If you want to, again, hit that like, that share, that subscribe. We also have the 7-day free trial going on. You can scan that QR code right up there on the top left of the screen. Use promo code Let's Go when you do sign up after your 7 days are over. That first month is less than $20, and you get access to everything that we have on site. So make sure you check all that out. And again, roster lock is not for another couple of hours, so get in that Discord. Be on the lookout for updates as we come through. Good luck tonight, everybody, and we will catch you all tomorrow. See you then.